Welcome to release question 205 for CAHSEE Math. It says, what is the solution to the system of the equations shown above? There are like 3 or 4 different ways we could tackle this question. I'm going to show you what in this case I think is the easiest way. And then I'll also just make some notes off to the side of what else could work. So from algebra, you should learn something like this called the linear combination method, where if you look at this equation, you look at this equation, if the x's and y's are lined up already, this is a great way to use. This is probably the easiest way to use if you have that being the case. So the x's line up, the y's line up. I noticed that if I had 3y here and a negative 3y right here, these would cancel each other out. Those would cancel each other out if I just combined the equations together. So I'm going to take this bottom one and multiply it by 3. This one I'm not going to change, so I'm going to put no change up here. Let's put that down. So no change to the top equation, but the bottom equation, multiply everything by 3. I'm going to line these up nice and straight. This is going to be no change, so I'm just rewriting the equation. This one, though, I'm multiplying not only the y term by 3, but everything. I have to change everything in the same manner, in the same way. That way, it's still a true equation. So this would be negative 3y, this was negative 12x, 6 times 3 would be 18. By doing that, since the x's line up, since the y's line up, by doing that I've now gotten a positive 3y and a negative 3y. These two are going to cancel each other out. Here I could have actually multiplied by 4 and negative 7. That would have worked as well to get the x's to cancel out. So that's another option you could do. But this was the easier way, the way I saw, at least that was easier to do this, because I have to only multiply one equation by something. So, that all said, this we can combine this together and get negative 5x. This is gone, so the y's are gone. I've got negative 8 plus 18 would be positive 10. So I can take this, divide it by negative 5. The negative 5 will cancel here and here. I've got x equals negative 2. So this is one part of my answer, and by doing that part at least, I've eliminated, looks like choices C and D are not going to work because those do not have negative 2 for the x value. And so now I just need to take one of these equations, any of the equations I have. It's best though to go back to the original equations in case you made a mistake here and plug stuff in. And so let's see, I'm going to go with I'll go with this one. So I'm going to take this equation, I'm going to circle that, and I'm just going to think of these two things flowing together. So I think of these kind of coming together. You would have negative 4 times, you know x now, you can plug it in as negative 2. And you have minus y equals 6. What's negative 4 times negative 2? That would be positive 8. And then from here, looks like I could add y and subtract 6 from both sides. Because if I add y to both sides, that will cancel. And if I subtract 6 from both sides, that will cancel. And so I'd be left with y equals 2. So my final answer should include x as negative 2 and y as positive 2. That looks like it's choice B. What were the other ways to do this? You may have heard something called substitution method. I'll just verbally explain that quickly here. You would, with the substitution method, you could do something like this. You could add 4x to both sides and then divide by negative 1. You would have y equals, and then that would be positive 4x minus 6. And since y equals positive 4x minus 6, you could plug that in for y up here as 4x minus 6. You could solve for x based on that, plug it back in, and solve for y. I'm not going to go over that whole method though, because that's just going to take too much room here. I may do that style in a future question if we have some more release questions like that. You could also, since it is a multiple choice question, you could honestly just look at the choices, plug in the values, and see which ones actually worked. If you plugged in negative 2 and positive 2 for x and y respectively into these equations, let's just mentally verify what would happen. So negative 2, positive 2 for x and y, this would be negative 14. This would be positive 6. Negative 14 plus 6 is in fact negative 8. If you plugged in negative 2 here, you'd get positive 8. this would be minus 2. Positive 8 minus 2 would be 6. That would be the only one that would actually check into both equations, give you a true equation both times around. So let's write those two ideas down off to the side here briefly, that we could also use the substitution method or we could just plug in the values into both equations and see which one works. So a couple of alternate ways to do that problem. So make a little note of that off to the side here, and you can fall back. You can always fall back on that. You can fall back on that honestly in a lot of different questions. If you didn't remember how to solve something, but you're given these answer choices, and you can work backwards, plug in numbers in your answer choices, or just take your answers and try to figure it out based on what the answer choices are, work backwards from there. That's another way to solve a lot of these problems. But with all that said, number 205, this is the linear combination method. Let's write that down here, linear combination method. That's what I call it, at least. I know some books call it some different things, but linear combination method looks like that. That is choice B, any way you do it.